Thank you for listening to Life Improvement Radio. You are listening to a rebroadcast of a previously recorded show.
But I do have author Claire LeGrand on the phone. Claire, how are you? And thanks for calling.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm doing great. It's my first time in Miami. Unfortunately, I'm only here for like 24 hours, but I'm having fun so far.
Claire, where do you live? Because I'm looking outside at my window and it's snowing, and it was 70 degrees in Pittsburgh Friday. So where are you from?
I live in Princeton, New Jersey right now, and I'm from Texas, though, originally. I've lived up north for a few years now. So it's snowing up there.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. It's not bad, but I mean, my entire grass in my parents' house where I'm at right now, broadcasting from, I'm looking outside and it's complete snow, and I'm like, okay, but nothing that's stuck on the sidewalks. But oh well.
Oh, that's good.
I'm not ready to shovel yet, and please don't tell me that yet, Claire. We got to at least get through Thanksgiving for sure, and then we can. Now, one thing that was interesting is I would Wikipedia you, and one of my co-hosts mentioned this. You're a musician first, then turned to author. So tell us that journey.
Yeah, when I was a young girl, I read voraciously and I wrote a lot. But once I got into middle school, high school, and college, music became my passion. I joined the band and I went full throttle. I was head drum major at my high school. I made all-state band. My dream was to play in the New York Philharmonic, so I had quite the ambition as a musician. I attended the University of North Texas because of their fantastic music program. But a couple of years into my undergraduate studies, I found myself unhappy because, writing is a hard gig, but music is too, and maybe even more so. And I found that I didn't quite have the passion required to make a living out of it. And I started thinking back to my childhood days of being a writer and dreaming of being a writer. And as I started thinking more along those lines, I started reading more, and I just felt really inspired to try writing again. And I had an idea for a particular book that just wouldn't let me go, and I decided that to really pursue this new path in my life, I needed to leave music behind, at least on an educational and professional level, and pursue writing instead. However, music remains such a huge part of remains such a huge part of who I am as a person and who I am as an artist. I do not regret, spending all of those years and all of that money being a musician. I think it's made me the writer that I am today.
Cool. So here's an interesting question for you, because I do write. I'm not a professional, but I do try to write my thoughts, make posts on, different social media. But my primary is doing visual art and doing digital art online. And I've found that there are some things that I can't express in visual art that I can express in words, and some things that I can't express in words that I can express in visual art. Have you ever had that issue between the two interests that you have?
Yes, absolutely. Both disciplines, music and writing, are an interesting combination of, left brain and right brain. You have to be very disciplined, and you have to be very logical and meticulous about how you express yourself, but you also have to be emotional and be sensitive and try to communicate things in an unquantifiable way. So I, as a writer, sometimes, I listen to music and I feel this huge swell of emotion inside of me because I still have that part of me that's so musically inclined, and I have a hard time regurgitating that emotion through words. And I try to replicate those musical feelings as much as I can through the lyricism of language and through creating a visual landscape, much as when I was a musician, I tried to create a sound and audio landscape. So there are definitely limitations to both art forms, but I think as a writer, the more kinds of art you learn about and immerse yourself in, the more completely you can express yourself through your writing, because you have all of those other disciplines to draw upon.
Yeah, and I find that to be very interesting is when, particularly if you got two passions, combining them into, to kind of playing off of each other. Like what I do is I write sometimes about my art, or I will do art sometimes about my writings, and I'm sure you've done this too with both music and both with writing. And I just think it's really, really interesting, and I appreciate the answer. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's a great question.
Claire, do you find it more difficult to be a musician or a writer? Like, what's been more challenging for you?
Oh, well, they're both extremely challenging and extremely rewarding. For me, music was more difficult and ultimately something that I just couldn't swing, as at least in a professional sense, because it felt to me very isolated a lot of the time. I loved playing in ensembles. In my college, I was in a brass quintet, I was in a wind ensemble, I was in an orchestra. But to be a really fantastic musician, you have to be willing to lock yourself up in a practice room for several hours a day, and I found that kind of lonely and frustrating, and I felt as if I reached a certain limitation in my own abilities, and I sort of knew instinctively that was a limitation I was not going to be able to transcend, and nor did I really want to. In contrast, writing, I feel even when I'm writing by myself, I'm connected to so many different people. I'm part of such a vibrant community that I've really chosen to immerse myself in. And even though I daily encounter limitations in my own writing, the frustration of feeling something fully realized in your mind, but not quite having the ability to make that happen on the page yet, that's something that every writer struggles with. But in contrast to that struggle as a musician, as a writer, I am fully willing to embrace that struggle and keep working at it and keep trying to improve myself as an artist. So they're both challenging, but the challenges of being a writer were ones that I was actually willing to face head on and go through life living alongside, whereas the challenges of being a musician made me just realize that way of life wasn't the one for me.
Yeah. Claire, what are you going to be, do you have a panel you'll be discussing today on at the fair? Are you be on some panels?
Yes, I am on a panel actually shortly after this interview at noon. I am on a panel with Robert Beatty, who is the author of the Serafina and the Black Cloak series, and Kelly Barnhill, whose latest book is The Girl Who Drank the Moon. I'm very excited. Our panel is called When Magic Meets Destiny, and all of our books tell stories about intrepid young girls who go on wonderful magical adventures and in the process learn a little something about themselves and grow as humans. So I'm very excited. I have never met Robert, but I have read his book. I haven't read the second one yet, but the first one was fantastic. And I have met Kelly several times. She's a friend of mine, and I'm so excited to talk with both of them.
All right. Well, best place we can find information on you, purchase your book, and learn more about you. Where can we go?
Well, I'm all over social media. I'm on Twitter at Claire LeGrand. I'm on Instagram, Tumblr, Facebook. I also have my website, claire-legrand.com. And I'm very active on social media. I do respond as much as I can. If anyone has questions for me and they want to approach me via my website or social media, I do answer all of those questions. So, yeah, I think just Google me, right? I'm all over the place.
You like that one. I don't have always the time, but it's so true. But, Claire, thanks for calling, and appreciate you calling, and best of luck with you. Okay?
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
Take care. It was a blast. Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
All right, bye.
You're listening to Author's Corner, powered by Life Improvement Radio, live from the Mind Book Fair. We'll be back in just a moment.
Thank you for listening to Life Improvement Radio. The views expressed by show hosts or their guests are their own and shall not be construed in any way as advice from Life Improvement Radio. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our website. Personal perspectives expressed by the producers, writers, or editors will always be presented as such. Any rebroadcast or retransmission without the expressed written consent of Life Improvement Radio is strictly prohibited. Thanks for listening.